enough of that noise. Time for the B-roll, boys.
What up? Welcome back to... That went well.
Now you know how it feels.
Welcome back to B-roll, boys. This week we're talking about, you fucking know it, The Last Airbender from 2010, directed by M. Night Shyamalan. I'm your host, Justin, and with me I've got Harlan.
I have a major headache. Can you guess why?
And Wes.
You're way too excited about this.
Me? Yeah. I just wanted to cause you guys incomprehensible pain.
You did. This giant zit on my forehead wasn't here before we started watching it.
You gotta stress it from Ong and Soka and whatever other names they mispronounce. I don't fucking know. Who cares?
K-Terra.
Eero, yeah. It's so bad that when I started actually watching the show with Erin, I was like, oh, his name is Eero, right? And she's like, no, it's Iroh.
Okay, so yeah, a little bit of background. Like that's a recent thing, Justin. Like you already hated this movie, but you hated it independently of the show because you hadn't seen it until recently, right?
Okay, so I saw a little bit of the show when it was actually on TV, but it was out of order and just kind of piecemeal and whatever. It was Nickelodeon. Yeah, it was Nickelodeon. And I think that was like 05, 06. So I only saw like bits and pieces of the first two seasons. I never saw any of the third. So my favorite character is absent from this one because this is basically a movie trying to adapt the show, but the entire first season within a roughly hour 43 minute movie. Yeah. And it goes badly.
You think?
So this is like one of the worst movies I've ever seen. And now that I've actually seen the subject matter, and I'm not going to lie, I kind of love the show. That's one of my favorite shows I've seen in a long time. That makes this extra atrocious. Usually I'm just watching things without really knowing or caring too much about the source material. And not that I think that an adaptation needs to necessarily be loyal to the source material to be good, but there's not a single aspect of this that captures like any essence of the original show.
No, yeah, exactly. And I wanted to bring that up because like it's all the things that this does differently from the show is not necessarily what makes it bad. That would be what would make it not good, but it's not necessarily what makes it bad if you get what I'm saying. But no, yeah, you can 100% have never seen the show and absolutely despise this movie. It's fucking awful.
Yeah, I watched this about a year ago for the first time, like in full, because this was actually the first thing I ever watched on Netflix back in like I think 2011, like late 2011 was when I saw this, and I got 30 minutes into it and said nope and turned it off, and then didn't watch it again until probably beginning of this year, end of last year, whenever Harlan, you and me watched it.
That sounds just about right.
Recreationally.
Yeah, we watched it immediately after we finished watching The Happening. So
I guess we were on an M. Night kick.
Yeah, for some reason.
I first saw this in theaters. I paid U.S. currency to see this.
I will say,
and that was the only time I saw it other than tonight. So
I didn't even pay for the Netflix subscription at the time. That was my friend's dad's.
This is my third time seeing this movie.
Wow.
But maybe you could say 2.5, because my very first time seeing it, I was, how shall I say, pursuing romantic interest with a girl from school. And we both loved the show, and she was like, let's watch it. And she came over. Needless to say, we didn't watch it at all. We just talked the whole time.
This movie didn't conjure up a bunch of sexual energy.
No,
you weren't glued to the screen the whole time?
This movie did not, needless to say, it did not help develop a marriage like last week's Thanksgiving did.
Thanksgiving was high art compared to this.
Oh, of course. I took way more notes for this movie than I have taken for any movie we've watched. I broke into 2 pages of notes. And this easily has the highest NPM, that's notes per minute, of any movie we've watched. I think I couldn't write down notes fast enough because each fucking minute had something to hate.
Yeah, we did this one remote. If we did this one in person, you just keep pausing it. You turn it in twice as long.
Yeah.
Yeah, I mean, I guess for the uninitiated, so this is based off of the series Avatar: The Last Airbender.
Which, if you haven't seen it, fucking go watch it. It's my favorite show ever. Go fucking watch it. It's amazing.
It's on Netflix. Just watch it.
It's basically about a little kid that's reincarnated as the Avatar, which is the only person that can manipulate, they call it bending, but they can manipulate all 4 elements of air, fire, earth, and water. And there's, in the world of this, there's supposed to be 4 kingdoms based around that. Or
Actually,
like 4
water's
societies.
after air in the cycle.
Excuse me. The adults are talking. But, yeah, the Avatar is basically supposed to be this reincarnated, like, Christ figure that comes up generationally. And
yeah, he's the connection between normal people and the spirit world, because spirits are a thing, even if they're like sort of an enigma to the people. They just know that they do exist, but they don't directly interact with them.
They kind of treat it like a Jedi thing of like, oh, you've got to be disconnected from the world, but you're ultimately going to be the one that's got to save it. And you've got all these past lives that you can talk to. I mean, this is all the stuff that's going on in the show, but in the movie, they kind of blaze through all that, so none of it really matters. And there's this horrible, stupid prick named Zuko from the Fire Nation, because the Fire Nation is the evil one. The other 3 are just kind of there. And he's supposed to capture the Avatar so he can restore his honor to his father that banished him for no reason, which they don't even explain in the movie, really. They do in the show.
They very briefly explain it, but much like pretty much anything from the show, in this movie it's very brushed over, because this movie is very, very fast-paced, because again, it's covering all of book 1 of the show, which I think is like 24 episodes. It's cramming all of that into or at least as much of it as it can into an hour and 44-minute movie. And yeah, like the stuff that they do make time for, it gets like a tiny little nod, and that's it. Nothing is developed.
Speaking of, I think it's really cute. It opens with book 1, water, as if they're going to make more.
Well, they even
they definitely planned. Yeah, they definitely planned to do all 3. But thank God that didn't happen.
I feel like they really were trying to make the end siege like a Helm's Deep level siege, but there's no build up, and it's really short but really long at the same time, because there's one particular sequence that takes for fucking ever, and then the rest of it is just like barely there. Like, man, I really try not to be a stickler about adaptations, because ultimately it doesn't matter as long as it's a good movie. It's fine to me. I don't care if you deviate from the source material, if it's engaging. But like, no, this is flat. This is like as uncanny valley, like alien and human skin type acting. It's from all these little fucking kids that are never in anything again. The only person of real note is Dev Patel.
And he plays Zuko, and he's like the best actor in the whole movie.
He's the only one that's really trying.
He's the only one that has any kind of emotion. The rest are just a bunch of fucking mannequins walking around.
Yeah, I also gave a nod to the actor that plays Ho Jensen in Iron Man. Can't remember his name. Sorry, Ho. But yeah, and then I was giving him too much credit. He's not trying in this movie. He's just kind of there. The only person that tries is Dev Patel.
Everyone else is just there.
Yeah, they're all just fucking useless. Like, these kids look like they're zanned out the whole time. Especially Katara. The girl that plays Katara, she's always just... I think she's the worst. Like, everybody's bad in this, but I think that she is, like, the absolute worst.
Nobody has any range, you know, except for Zuko. Like, everybody is just super flat and just, like, matter of fact about everything they say, you know?
It's like they literally have the script in front of them and they're just reading it.
Yeah, it's awful.
Well, it's almost like these are like D-level actors that were never in anything again, and most of them are 12.
That's not true. That's not true. The girl that plays Katara, Nicola something, was in the hit movie Transformers 4: Age of Extinction.
Oh my god, a real odyssey there.
Was that the Marky Mark one?
Yes, it was.
I need to watch that then.
Oh, you haven't seen it? It's awful.
I've seen like the first one. I never really gave a shit about Transformers anyway, but yeah, I haven't seen any.
Oh man, we could get into those, but another time. Let's start at the beginning of this movie though, because like
book 1. What?
I think you could absolutely say that the intro for the show is iconic. Like I can recite it from memory, and I know a lot of people that can. It's great.
Geek.
But this movie, it does it with like, you know, like a text scroll, like Star Wars, and it's just fucking so lazy. Like they needlessly add in like these couple little words and phrases that just kind of like make it feel muddled, you know? And like the whole point is for Katara to explain to the audience, like just kind of laying the ground for the world that this takes place in, rather than, you know, doing any sort of world building in a more organic way. Yeah. Rather than doing that in a more organic way. And it's also super redundant because later her grandma just like re-explains what she did in the opening of the movie. She just explains the Avatar as if she didn't explain it to the audience already.
I'm kind of wondering why they didn't just recreate the intro from the show, because they kind of do that at the beginning where they have the four people like bending the elements or whatever.
Yeah,
which
they're like silhouettes.
It looks so fucking stupid in live action. Like that's, I guess, the biggest problem I have with this, aside from the fact that the acting is bad. Like if you made the action passable, then it at least could be, you know, visually interesting, right? But in the show, it's basically like all these different levels of martial arts, and they can kind of like snap their fingers and have just complete mastery over these elements. But in the movie, I mean, they're having to do like 3 spin kicks at a time, and then it like moves a rock. Like remember that part when they're in the Earth Temple or the Earth Kingdom village?
Yeah, it took
and
a
there's
whole
like
school
6
of
guys that are all doing this synchronized like motion, and just a pebble floats by.
I remember, okay, so I saw this back in like 2011 with that girl, and I remember losing my shit when I saw that. Because, yeah, like, listeners, we are not exaggerating. There's like a group of like at least 6 dudes that do a synchronized form of some sort of martial art, and literally just like a small stone moves past them. And I want to know who the fuck approved that and thought that looked cool. Because, yeah, like, all the benders are extremely nerfed in this movie when compared to the show. Like,
all of them.
None more, though, than the firebenders. Because in the show, the firebenders can just conjure up fire out of nowhere. But in this, they can only move fire that's already existing. So they have to, like, take torches with them everywhere they go. Which, like, begs the question, how the fuck did the Fire Nation conquer all of the world with that major handicap?
They brought the torches.
Yeah, exactly. Like we were
That's
talking
so
about earlier.
dumb.
They brought like fire starter logs.
We were talking earlier about deviating from the source material, but this does it in the worst ways possible like that. Is there any reason why they shouldn't be able to create fire?
Well, the funny thing is, as far as like the central plot, it actually doesn't deviate from the source material that much, because since it's supposed to be season 1, which the show is kind of set up in a weird way where it's almost anthology based, but they've got like a central arc to everything, but every episode is its own contained conflict, because this is being shown on TV to kids that are not going to be watching it in sequence like adults would a drama. Like they're just tuning into this whenever. So that's also why you have to get you hear the theme and like the opening world building every single episode. So every kid that's tuning in for the first time, or like me that was tuning in every couple months because they saw the episodes out of order, be like, oh yeah, that's the spiel. Okay. And you could have done that. You could have just had that at the beginning of the movie, and we've been like, oh, okay. But they do go through all the major plot points. It's just because there's no room for the movie to breathe, so a bunch of them don't even mean anything. Like, this movie moves at a fucking lightning speed until the very end, until like the last half hour or so, and it's this one battle scene, then that takes forever.
That's the one thing that could have been cut down.
It's extremely brisk for the first hour, and then as soon as they get to the North Pole, it just fucking grinds to a halt, and nothing fucking happens.
Yeah, dude. When the Fire Nation attacks, there's like 40 minutes left.
It's insane, like, watching it and being like, wait, when is this gonna end? Like,
yeah, it's like half the movie's left.
Yeah.
Now, the question I have is, if you're going to be zooming through all of these episodes and like they blow over so many major characters, how are they going to make sequels of this? Because the last half of the last season is more or less like all the characters that they've met culminating together.
Yeah,
and it's like, you skipped all the guys in the first chapter, so what difference? Like, how do you introduce those people later? Unless you do a Harry Potter thing where it's just like, oh, they're here now. Because the Harry Potter movies did the same shit.
That's true. Just all of a sudden, there's this guy in their class that's just been there from the beginning, supposedly.
It's like, oh, hey, guy from season 1.
Hey, guy that was in the background of that one shot.
And
they do that. Like Haru is in like a very brief scene, and I don't think he's even called Haru. Like Suki's in like one scene in the background, but like, fuck off if you think in a sequel you can just like pull them in and be like, hey, remember them?
I did recognize one of the extras. He's one of the thugs in Gran Torino. Like the main
that guy.
He was just like, I recognized his face. He has like a distinctive face, and I was trying to think, where the hell did I see him? But no, he's like the main asshole in Gran Torino that's fucking with his little cousin.
That's fair. I'd rather watch that again.
Yeah, Gran Torino.
I guess most people would.
Yeah, I'm glad that now that we've watched this for the show, I never have to watch it again because fuck this movie.
We're totally gonna watch this again.
No,
we have a Blu-ray to destroy.
I'll meet you out back. Right now.
Aim for the bushes.
Yeah. I'll say, I think probably the worst thing, maybe not the worst thing, but one of the worst things about this movie is just that it sucks all the fun out of the show because, you know, the show is about a group of kids, you know, like ages like Aang is the youngest at age 12 and, you know, Sokka is the oldest. I think
You
he's
mean
like
Ong? And
yes,
Sokka?
Ong and Sokka.
That's another thing. Why'd they change all the name pronunciations? Like almost all of them are
Right,
different.
it's not like they're adapting it from a book. Like you have, and this isn't even
A
like
reference,
a translated anime. This is an English show. There's no fucking excuse for them to be mispronouncing every single name. I feel like maybe they were trying to make the movie unique in that way, but why? No one that's watching this gives a shit about it outside of the people that watch the show.
We'll get to that in my trivia. That's a teaser for you.
Oh shit!
fuck.
Yeah, but they just fucking suck all the fun out of the show because yeah, like it's a group of kids that travel the world age 12 to I think Sokka's 16 in the show, and so of course they get into all sorts of fun and have like wacky shenanigans. And you know like I mean, perfect example. The very first thing that Aang says when he wakes up from being encapsulated in ice is, will you go penguin sledding with me? And that like sets the tone for most of the show, is him just wanting to have fun. He doesn't want to acknowledge the responsibility that he has as Avatar for a long time. He just wants to be a kid and have fun.
Yeah, in the show he wants to have fun. In the movie he wants a family.
Yeah, like what's with that?
He keeps mentioning they won't let me have a family.
Which
He's like,
also, where
dude,
did that
you're
come
12.
from? Because lots of avatars before Aang had a family. Like, who says he can't have a family?
That's
This is
just
where I got,
another
like, the
weird
Jedi
thing that they
vibes.
changed. Yeah.
Like, I mean, the avatar just before him had a family. Roku had a family. Fucking,
That's it.
I don't know if Kyoshi had a family. Sorry.
At least a couple of them had families, though. So that's
Yeah,
just
I mean,
another
there
bit
was
of
the one
lore
that
they put in there.
The face stealer referenced the waterbender. He had a wife, at least. Like they are allowed to have family. Like that's bullshit and just like a needless fucking like Jedi ripoff type thing.
But this is just, I feel like they just make everything so flat and somber, but instead of it,
dude.
it's not like some, what's another like really somber down and out movie? I guess like Book of Eli, if they're going for that kind of shitty tone, which doesn't make sense for this based on the audience that you know is going to be watching this movie and the fact that, yeah, it's starring little kids in it for the most part. Also, I don't want to be that guy, but can I just mention that like all these kids in the show are not white, but they are in
this
here,
movie-
and the only people that are like the people of color are the Fire Nation people.
The bad guys. Yeah. No, this movie definitely
I
has
was
a
like,
whitewashing
okay,
problem.
thanks, movie, subtle.
And I also want to point out that like I mean I get why they had to do it, but you know, because they're trying to cram so much of you know this show into an hour and a half movie. But I mean they gloss over so many of the character dynamics and relationships that you know made that gave us such great payoffs later on. Like another perfect example is you know the way that Katara and Sokka discover Aang in the show is like they get into an argument, like Sokka's being a jerk and Katara yells at him and accidentally like uses her water bending to break the ice and crack open or reveal Aang's iceberg that he's stuck in. And then in the movie, they just see it below them and there's no like build up to it. There's no mystery. They're just like, hey, what's that?
Yeah,
and that's fucking it. Like,
and Sokka's like, all right, let's fuck off, and then she just grabs his axe.
Yeah,
and
we don't get any of
it.
we don't get any of that, like, you know, like dynamic between Katara and Sokka as, like, you know, a brother and sister who, you know, have like some issues with each other about, like, you know, like missing their parents and feeling like they need to provide for one another, things like that. You know, none of that's there. It's just, oh, we found Aang. That's it.
Yeah, it's when you're trying to cram so much shit into such a short runtime. I feel like maybe it would have worked as like a mini series, not with this director and not with this cast. Like, Jesus Christ,
it 100% needed more room to breathe. Also,
there's a lot of like a thing that's common in the show is that they take there's a lot of animal hybrids, which is basically just like whatever combination of real life animals. And the two main ones that are in the show are supposed to be like, there's a sky bison, which is like half bison, half platypus, and it can fly. It's roughly the size of a tank. And then the other one is supposed to be like a flying lemur. I don't remember what it's supposed to be mixed with, but basically it's these two little like cutesy R2D2 like C3PO kind of characters in the show. Like they're just kind of there, but they're important. And they're mostly like comic relief for that they're cute. And in the show, I mean, they look hideous. Jesus Christ. These are like
in the movie.
This is the scariest, like, where the wild things are shit I've seen in a movie rated this way.
Is adorable. Like, despite his size in the show, he's adorable. But in this, they gave him like a weirdly human face.
Just kind of creeps you out.
I remember just seeing the commercial that ended with Appa roaring at the camera, and I was like, oh my god, why is he so ugly? How did they fuck up Appa that bad?
I love
it's
how
no wonder no one wanted to write it.
It doesn't even sound like a bison. It just sounds like a dude screaming. Every time he screams, it's like,
yeah, he sounds worse than a Wookiee, and then he just flies away.
It does.
He just sounds like all those YouTube videos of like goats screaming. It's just like that.
It's like the creepiest shit. I don't know what they were going for there. But I mean, I guess, do we go through the plot of this? Like, I'm assuming that a lot of people will know the general plot. So yeah, Aang is supposed to master all the elements. And in this particular, since we're supposed to be adapting the first season, he's supposed to be he already knows how to bend air. He needs to learn how to bend water. That's kind of the main arc of the first season, and they go to like the main water kingdom, which is like
water
their
world,
version
if you will.
of the Wall from Game of Thrones, but or Minas Tirith, but it looks like shit.
Why?
Oh, the
why
CGI in this is atrocious as well. Like for 2010,
that should go without saying.
This is
you either need good actors or good CGI, but they don't have either.
Yeah, like the direction is bad. The plot is incomprehensible. It's one of those things where I can fill in the blanks because I know what they were going for from the show. But like, I remember watching the first time, or like the first time all the way through, I didn't know what the fuck was going on.
Oh yeah, you can't follow any of it. Like, I mean,
that's another thing for. Considering how much they expected you to have seen the show to watch this movie, they deviated in just the right ways to piss you off too. So like, I don't know who this was for. Like
small, incomprehensible, or like inconsequential ways, like all the character mispronunciations, the creatures look gross, the bending looks stupid in live action, and the CGI is bad, so it looks even worse.
I don't think the problem is that like bending doesn't translate to live action, because I think it totally could, and I've seen lots of like fan made videos where they are in live action. It looks good.
It just takes too long.
It's so slow. It's like like Wes said at one point that it feels like a turn based battle. Yeah, because they literally take turns throwing shit at each other, and just
it takes like 5 seconds per turn for each of their attacks.
Yeah, like when they're liberating that Earth Kingdom prison camp. The firebenders all like they like three dudes like throw a string of fire, and then like the camera literally like pans and follows the fire to them, and it takes like 3 seconds, and they're like, oh shit, better put up a wall.
Wait, speaking of those dudes, how are they imprisoned? They're fucking earthbenders,
dude.
And they can't create fire. They could just like muff out their fucking fire with their earth or whatever. There's clearly a whole shitload of earthbenders.
Okay,
and they're around Earth. It wasn't in the show. They were like imprisoned above water or some shit.
Yes, in the show they were on like a
like
metal.
it made sense in the show.
Yeah, in the show they were on like a metal.
They were surrounded
station.
by Earth. Sorry,
they were on a metal station out at sea, so there was no Earth anywhere near them. But in this, they were literally just like
it's
in
100% Earth. They were building walls and all kinds of shit.
No, but
And
they're
there's
just
also-
like pissing around, and then Aang comes in. He's like, "The ground is an extension of who you are, man. You're
And they're like,
earthbenders." And
they're like, oh yeah.
You know what's the worst fucking part is when like before he reveals himself to be the Avatar because he's wearing his hood up so they don't see like his tattoos yet, and he's like,
Hooded and cloaked.
If the Avatar was back, how would you feel? And then this one guy just like so lazily just says, if the Avatar were alive, he'd protect us. And like there's no like despair in his voice, you know, like this guy should be delivering this line and like sounding like very like hopeless and like beaten into the ground, you know? And he's just like, if the Avatar were alive, he'd protect us. There's
it sounds
nothing
like an
behind
old
his
fucking
delivery.
DOS game. This is like Elder Scrolls.
It's fucking
I
awful.
felt like I was
God,
watching
hate it.
live action Morrowind. Like everything is so stilted and unnatural and shitty. This is one of the worst movies I've ever seen, let alone one of the worst we've ever seen for the show.
Can we talk about why fucking Sokka and Katara are so stupid? They take so
Sokka?
long. Yes. They take so long to figure out that Aang's the Avatar, even though at one point, Katara says, before she is supposed to have realized that Aang is the Avatar and can bend all four elements, she says, Aang airbended a sphere of ice around him. What? And she doesn't realize he's the Avatar until like fucking like 20 minutes later
Yeah,
when he
because
straight
he's-
up says, I'm the Avatar.
Because
How do you
he's-
not
a
put
sphere
that
of
together?
ice? How do you airbend a sphere of ice? Wouldn't that be water bending?
Yeah. What the hell?
That makes sense. It doesn't make sense on like two different levels. At least.
What's with the Avatar test? Like when he's on the Fire Nation ship
he gets
in the
captured.
South Pole. Yeah, like Zuko and Iroh take him on the ship and they're like, we need to do a test to see if you're the Avatar. And literally all they do is they just put a rock in front of him
Yeah,
and they
then it
pour some
wiggles.
water on the table. And yeah, it like moves. And I'm like, wait, the Avatar's not a fucking magnet for the elements. Like they don't like gravitate towards him.
Yeah,
That's
like
not
as
how
he's
any of this works.
as he's walking through the air or the earthbending village, the rocks didn't move away from him and
Yeah,
shit.
that's not how this fucking works.
Again, this is like some weird Jedi test, and I'm like, what are we going for?
I see a speeder. So this movie's bad.
You think?
It's a little bit. I feel like we're getting really heated. We need to take
What's
a
with
little.
the what's with the lame ass spirit world in this movie? Like in the show, the spirit world is like this really mysterious, like anything can happen sort of realm where you see all these cool creatures and like you like the laws of physics almost don't apply. But in this, the spirit realm is just like a forest with like 12 filters over
It looks like a J.J. Abrams thing.
It's so ugly. And yeah, the only spirit you see is like this dragon spirit who is like an amalgam of like 4 different characters from the show. I guess it's really lazy.
Yeah, that was weird, but I mean, you could have made this longer. I mean, it should have been a mini series. If you're gonna make this live action, it needs to be a mini series.
Yeah, it should have been a miniseries with like, you know, at least like hour-long episodes, you know?
Yeah.
100%. If they put this on like HBO or something,
I would fuck with a like super violent rendition of Avatar so hard.
that would be perfect right now. Because it's like 15 years later, they could totally do it and just attract the same audience. But just a
they
mature
were
version.
gonna make another. They were gonna reboot it in live action on Netflix, and the creators, the 2 creators, Mike and Brian something, were attached to it, and like they were gonna be involved in the making of it, and so people were really stoked about it. And then a few months ago, they were like, "Yeah, we're not working on this anymore." Like they just weren't really listening to us, and we were like, "We've been here before. We know how this ends. We're out."
Oh,
So
fuck.
yeah, if it gets released, expect this again.
So they were trying to like fuck it up, and the creator's like, no.
And yeah, they just
We're
weren't.
gonna
They
walk, and then they walked.
they just weren't listening to it. So yeah, I'm expecting if they release it, it'll be this again.
Do you
Jesus,
think that
man.
M. Night was like phoning this one in? Because I didn't see any of his normal like M. Night isms aside from the fact that he's never been good at directing actors.
Literally everything about this feels phoned in.
but like it doesn't have the twists. It doesn't have like the weirdness like M. Night shit usually does.
Well, this is his only adapted thing, right? Everything else was an original.
I think so.
Yeah.
So maybe that's why it was just. Maybe that's why he wanted so bad to change something that he just changed a bunch of annoying little shit. I don't know.
Well, this is like
sad.
in my unholy trinity of his, where like you've got The Happening, this, and then After Earth back to back, and I guess this is the worst one. The Happening is probably the worst, like objectively as a movie, but I do think it's the most watchable and like the most funny.
Yeah,
No,
just
I
because
think
every
this is
scene
the
has
worst.
something to laugh at.
No, this is the worst one.
Yeah.
Because it's you can't even laugh at this movie. Like there's nothing to latch onto about it.
We weren't even making jokes, really. We were just bitching about everything. Like, what was that?
Bullshit.
Another thing that
It's
pissed...
hard not to get mad about this movie, man, because they had blueprints for something great, you know?
Exactly. Another thing that pisses the shit out of me is there's like more subtitles of locations than fucking dialogue.
Oh my
like
God.
every 2 seconds, it was like Earth Nation number 2, Air Temple number 7. It was just like fucking changing.
They bounce
like-
around from scene to scene like a fucking ping pong ball.
And every single time there's a fucking subtitle telling you where they are.
It's
Even if they're like, hey, I'm gonna go to that air temple. When he gets there, it's like air temple at the bottom.
Speaking of which, when he gets to that air temple, the Fire Nation is there and it was like a trap. And I want to know how they knew he was gonna be there. Because they're
he's like,
they're
I'm sorry.
ready for him.
I led them here. Fucking win.
Yeah.
How?
It like in the time between when these 3 kids showed up and when you met him, because they're only there like a day.
That kind of shit is like more impressive than the bending in the movie, because that happens like 3 times. Someone's like, oh, sorry, I did this. And I was like, when did you have time to do that?
They came out of hyperspace.
To that point, to emphasize how unimpressive and mundane the bending can be in this movie, there is literally one part when Aang is and Katara and Sokka are at the Southern Air Temple. Aang uses his airbending he's like walking down some steps, and he uses his airbending to like skip 3 steps. What the fuck?
I mean, to be fair, he does dumb shit like that in the show too.
I mean, yeah, but skipping 3 steps, like,
But when that's the most impressive thing, it's bullshit.
yeah.
Oh yeah, they're trying to show like, oh, this kid's special, but I mean,
Like,
in the show,
the
he's
bending-
like he gets like a ball of air and then skirts
he's an air
around on
scooter.
it.
Yeah. He
The
invented
bending
the
should
air
have been the
scooter.
most impressive thing in the movie. It's the last airbender. But they don't fucking do anything with it. It's all
Well, I
stupid.
will say-
it
I will
takes
say
8
that-
guys to throw a rock.
It just
I could have
feels
picked it
like-
up off the ground and chucked it.
Aang's airbending is the best looking bending of the 4 elements in this movie.
Oh yeah, because they
Because
didn't
it
have to
barely
render
takes anything.
CGI air.
They probably
it
just
also-
got it
it
out
also
of
seems-
After Effects.
It also seems to take him less effort than other people bending.
It's almost
other
like-
bending does.
It's almost like there's input buffering. Like they have to put in like a button
Yeah.
combination and then they'll do like a very basic move.
Yeah,
Rather in the show, like the elements respond with every single action that they take, but in this they just like windmill their arms for a little bit and then a pebble flies over.
Yeah, I don't get what the point of that was. Like, it just made their jobs harder. Like, I'm sure it was really difficult to like choreograph all these fight moves that are like supposed to you know line up with the bending. Like, why make your life harder and come up with all these elaborate fighting forms when you could just literally have them like throw punches and a rock could go by?
Yeah, I mean, fuck, this had a budget. It was 150 million went into this shit.
This is 150 million?
Yeah.
That's insane.
I didn't even
That's
think to
insane.
look at that. Holy shit. I just assumed it was like less than 100.
Dude,
Just
you
with
know
how,
what?
with how shitty it looks,
This-
and considering there's no actors in it, where did the 150 million go? How much did they pay M. Night?
This totally does look like a Nickelodeon TV movie. You know, and if that's what it was, if this didn't get a theatrical release, I wouldn't be nearly as mad about it, you know, because it's like, who gives a shit, you know?
Yeah, because no one would have fucking watched it.
It looks like a sci-fi thing, but like shinier. Like everything looks a little too clean. It looks like at one point I was watching this with Evan, and he was like, "This looks like a PS2 game." Like a bunch of the sets, especially because everything is just too saturated. It's a little too like perfect looking and video gamey. Everything is so vivid, but in like a really boring way. I will say though, there's only one thing that I think is legitimately good about this. I think the costumes are okay. I think the Fire Nation ones are a little boring, but I think that they're at least fairly accurate to the show.
Oh, you fucked up, man. You need a new good thing at the end of the show, then.
Well, I mean, that'll be my good thing. Spoiler alert. No, yeah, that was the one thing that I was like, oh, that looks kind of good.
The Fire Nation outfits are like really just generic and boring.
But
like,
they're on the show too. Like they just look like samurai. And like everybody in the show has like Fu Manchu stashes that they don't have. But maybe because
I don't know.
I don't
like their outfits in the show, like the Fire Nation soldiers, like they look like their outfits remind you of fire when you look at them because they're like red with like a black or yellow trim. So like that like calls to mind fire right away. Here they're just like all black, just very generic.
I mean, I don't think that they look. I think the fire ones are definitely like the weakest ones. But as far as like Katara and Sokka, I thought that those looked fairly accurate. Now, I mean, they're supposed to have like coats because they're from like the Arctic. Yeah. Or well, Antarctic, I guess, South Pole. But I mean, it's close enough. At least they're wearing blue. and Aang is wearing orange. That's about as much as I could get.
You did it, M. Night. Good
fucking
job.
abortion of a movie.
Way to go. So proud of you.
Hell yeah, you did
Yes, go off, King. But I mean, considering how atrocious and unwatchable the rest of this shit is, like that was the one thing that I was oh, okay.
Well, it's weird how they were really planning on making a whole trilogy out of this, because like. So, like, the end game of the show is to take down Fire Lord Ozai. And Fire Lord Ozai in the show is, like, a mystery for a long time. Like, you don't even see his face until season 3. And it's kind of a big deal, you know? But in this, you just see him out of nowhere in a scene. Like, it just cuts, and Commander Zhao
like, hey,
is just walking with him in a hallway. And he's like, so, Fire Lord Ozai, what would you like to do about this? And there's no build-up to it. Like, he's not intimidating at all. Like, Fire Lord Ozai in the show is, like, a serious threat. Like, he's a big deal. He's, like, the most powerful firebender there is. Like, he's scary. He's intimidating. And in this, he's just a politician.
Well, whenever you see him in the show, he's like surrounded by this giant backdrop of flames, and he's got this huge like throne room with this like this huge drip and this throne that he's sitting on.
Oh, he's got a giant goatee.
But in this, he's just like walking in a hallway.
Yeah, like
Hero's the best firebender in the movie.
Everything cool out of Fire Lord Ozai. How do you do that?
Well, and then like our end credits or like the before credits scene, which is supposed to be the sequel teaser, we're supposed to have the sister of Zuko, Azula, who looks nothing like Azula in the show and sounds nothing like her, but it's supposed to be like this, oh shit. And I wonder how that actress must have felt. Like maybe she grew up watching the show and she was like, oh fuck, I get to be Azula. It's like one of the coolest characters in the show, and she's in this for like 10 seconds.
Dude, she gets just all gets canned.
Dude, show Azula can step on me. But this Azula can fuck right off. Like she
this
like
one got cocked.
Like the teaser is like Ozai says to her like, your brother has failed his mission to capture the Avatar. Will you accept his mission in his place? And she like smiles and looks up at the camera and she's like, yes. And then she like slowly gets a bigger smile, and it's supposed to be like creepy and unsettling, but it's just funny.
Yeah, this looks
she's
stupid.
Terrible. Yeah, it does. Fuck off.
Speaking of terrible, can we talk about the 35-minute battle scene?
Oh my god.
So
how did they drag it out that much?
This made the Game of Thrones scene, like the last Game of Thrones siege, look fucking brilliant.
Yeah, because even like dumber shit happened this time. About. Okay, so the whole crux of the firebending is that they can't create it for some reason in the movie, even though they can in the show.
Well,
so
like
before the battle,
very few people can create fire out of nowhere.
Well,
like it's very rare.
More than Eero can in the show.
Yeah.
But,
really? I thought that everyone could.
It seemed like a higher level fire thing.
No, no, you guys are on the same page. Yeah, in the show, everyone can create fire.
Yeah, that's what I mean.
But in this, only Iroh can. Excuse me,
only
Eero.
Yeah.
Yeah. Only he can create fire in the movie, but in the show, everybody can do it. You know, that's cool, whatever. But in the battle, at the very beginning in the battle, they're like, okay, put out as many fires and torches as you possibly can, and then they don't put out a single fucking one of them. Every single shot, everywhere you see a pyre, everywhere you see a fire pit, it's lit. It's fire everywhere.
Yeah,
like they would have been
literally
powerless if they put it out like the fucking guy said.
They're literally just leaving ammunition around for their enemy forces to use.
They're leaving,
like there are
mana
so many
potions.
scenes. There are so many scenes where there are multiple torches behind them, and I'm like, don't you think putting that out should be a priority? If you do that, literally all they have is spears, and that's not going to do shit against a waterbender.
You know how in video games you're like, man, they just don't keep explosive barrels lying around everywhere? Well, guess what? That's what this was. Because the whole fact that they can't create fire out of nothing, they would have been fucking powerless. Other than the torches that they carry, and they could just spray them with piss or water or whatever they do.
As I was watching the show, I remember thinking, it's kind of funny that fire is supposed to be like the Hitler Nation, because everything else hard counters them pretty well, except for air, but even that could with a certain amount of strength. But like earth and water both hard counter those. But it's that the Fire Nation, like, they've got so much technology, like in the show, they've got like tanks and all this machinery, which I guess they do touch on in the movie, but again, it's like a blink it and you miss it, what kind of thing, where they never use it. But like in this, it's a fucking joke. Like, these guys are second class to all three elements.
Because all the benders fucking suck, including the fire ones. It just turns out it's a little bit better.
You know, to give you an idea of how much all the bending sucks, towards the climax of the movie, Zuko kidnaps Aang, and they have a fist fight. They don't bend; they have a fist fight.
Yeah, because it's faster.
Insulting shit. Yeah, because they don't have to do 16
they're like
cartwheels
punching each other and doing karate.
They had no room for it. They were in a storage closet.
What the fuck with that? They have a fist fight in a Last Airbender movie. That makes no sense. Eventually, they do start bending, but it's like, what were you waiting for?
This is why I chose this movie, because I figured it would just get us all pissed off, because the last few we've been fairly whatever about, but this one is like, I knew that would be a firecracker instantly.
Also, of course I have shit to say. We're like maybe halfway through my notes. Fucking when the movie like touches on this little mini arc where Aang gets captured by Zhao, and Zuko in disguise frees him because like he wants to be the one to capture the Avatar so he can restore his honor, go home, blah blah blah. And then like they escape, but Zuko gets knocked out, and so Aang takes off his mask and realizes it's Zuko. And in the show they have like this really poignant moment where he's like, we could have been friends. Like, why do we have to fight each other? You know, like I was friends with Fire Nation people 100 years ago. Why can't we be friends now? And then he leaves, and it's great. But that doesn't happen in this. Like, he sees it's Zuko, and then he just leaves. There is a nod to that line later, but it's so half-assed because literally Zuko meets Katara at the North Pole and says, "Who are you?" They don't meet until the North Pole. These two characters who like are at odds with each other all the time in the show are always fucking butting heads with each other's groups, and they literally don't know each other's names until the end of the movie.
Yeah, the entire first season is supposed to be Iroh and Zuko just going around the world hunting the Avatar, but that's just not at all. It's like barely alluded to in this. Like, probably just because of the runtime. Like, I feel like even if this was 3 hours, it would have been. Well, Jesus, if this was 3 hours, I probably wouldn't have chosen it if it was 3 hours. God damn. But it just moves at fucking warp speed, and I don't get it. Speaking of the giant fuck off fight scene at the end, another giant like cock tease is supposed to be so Aang can go into like an avatar state where he's sort of possessed and all powerful, but that's also when he's his most vulnerable, which they don't even fucking sniff at in the movie.
Yeah, that's when he uses his ultimate.
Yeah, it's basically him using his ultimate. And in the show, he turns into this like giant sea creature type thing that basically wipes out all these Fire Nation ships.
Yeah, he he like combines with the fish spirit or something, right?
Yeah, and in this, he makes a giant wave from Poseidon.
That could have looked better with how bad the fucking CGI is. Could you imagine what fish Aang would have looked like in this?
I mean, not to mention like that's the part where like instead of like an awesome like giant fish monster that Aang pilots and like just fucking destroys the Fire Nation,
it's like a Godzilla type thing.
Yeah, exactly. It's a kaiju, but in this, he just like fucking. in this, Aang just fucking like goes to the wall of the water tribe, and he just like does some yoga for fucking 5 minutes and builds a giant wave and then just pushes the ships away, and that's it. That's the climax of the movie. He does yoga for, I'm not kidding, I really think it's like 5 minutes of him just doing this. I zoned out because he was doing yoga for so fucking long.
I went back and looked at it.
Oh my God, just fucking get on with it already.
I went back and looked at it. It was actually about 3.5 minutes.
Jesus Christ, 3.5 minutes of just watching this kid do yoga.
Of the water slowly rising.
Yeah, and like there's like shots of like the people like being like, whoa, and just watching him do it. Like, okay, I get it. Did that need to be 3.5 minutes? Fuck.
The waterbenders should have been able to do that.
They're not even staring with any real wonder. They're just kind of like all these doe-eyed kids.
They're just
staring
distracted,
expressionless, like into the background. Like Katara's just like, the whole time. I feel like they try to give Sokka a couple like, oh, he's kind of like a quirk, a funny dork in the show, and they try to give him a couple lines like that, but there's
like 3 of them and none of them are funny.
Yeah, exactly.
Those jokes hit the ground faster than the fucking dead fish did when they killed it.
Yeah, they try to make him funny 2 or 3 times, but other than that, it's like every other character, like he's just reading his line.
And, there's a lot more to Sokka. Like he's like a good detective. Like, yeah, he's the comedic relief, but he's like a detective. He's smart. And like he like feels a need to provide.
Like the leader.
Yeah, like he feels a need to provide for those around him and like step into his father's shoes because his father's away fighting the war.
Yeah,
but
he's like Brock.
It's like all they got from the show was, oh, Sokka's the comedic relief, and somehow they forgot to do that.
Yeah, they barely do that. He's just like, oh, he's the like a slightly older kid.
Yeah,
because I think he's supposed to be 14 in the show. Zuko's 16.
You're right.
But it's like, yeah, they're all roughly the same age, but Sokka's a tiny bit older, and he's a little bit smarter and more, I guess, prideful. But again, the show doesn't, or the movie doesn't touch on that at all, and he's just like a blank nothing for most of it.
Yeah.
And
that's what happens when you pull somebody from
the
Twilight.
Ugliest Appa thing I've ever seen. I know that we keep like touching back on the same shit over and over again, but it really is just like an absolute cardinal sin.
I cannot stress enough. Yeah,
how
it's
bad
fucking, like,
Appa is.
I mean, like these guys will tell you that like every time I saw Appa's face in the movie, I screamed.
It wasn't even Appa's face. You could see him like way in the background. Harlan was like, "God damn it, he's hideous."
And then whenever
Appa's so fucking cute. Yeah, I'm like, I want to give Appa a hug in the show, and this one I want to kill it.
Yeah, Harlan does that, and then whenever he flies off, Justin and I are like, ah!
Yeah, because he screams like a grown man every time.
It's just horrible.
What the fuck?
Can we talk about the Agni Kai? Agni Kai in the show is like, it's like a formal duel.
Didn't they call it the Agni Ki or Agni K or something?
Yeah, they call it Agni Ki.
Just another thing they mispronounced.
Yeah, it's a 1v1 me moment.
Yeah. So yeah, like when they're very briefly and lazily explaining Zuko's backstory, and he unintentionally disrespected his father, the Fire Lord, and so he was challenged to an Agni Kai. He refused to fight his father, and I just thought it was really weird that in the show, an Agni Kai is like something that like takes place in an arena, and like a lot of people are there to watch it. So it's like it was really humiliating for Zuko to lose. It's really humiliating for anyone to lose because like everybody sees you go down. But in this, their Agni Kai is just like in a small room and there's like 5 people there to see it. It's so like it feels much less impactful.
Yeah, and another thing that I noticed, and I feel like this is the same kind of thing that happened in Ready Player One, where Zuko it has a giant burn scar on his eye, and it covers like half his face. That's his defining feature. But it looks Dev Patel has got like a couple little like scratches, or it looks like he's got a black eye. Like he just got
there were some shots where I thought they forgot the makeup. There were some instances where I thought that they forgot that he had a scar.
Yeah, it's his primary feature in the show, and then the movie, he's just got like 2 little scabs.
Yeah, and Ready Player One did the same shit where the girl, like the main female character, is supposed to be like, oh, she's disfigured. She has like this giant scar.
You wouldn't like me if you knew me in real life.
She's got like a little dumb like smudge on her face, and I'm like, shut up, you're hot.
Yeah, like I have this birthmark that I could easily cover, but besides that, I'm a model.
Yeah, like I'm a 10 out of 10, but I have like a little smudge, some schmutz right there.
Little smudges.
Like the size of a dime. But yeah, Zuko's got the same thing where he's barely got like a couple grape jelly splatters around his eye instead of this giant like softball sized thing that he has in the show.
Justin, can I ask you who's your favorite character from the show?
It's a tie between Toph and Iroh.
Nice.
The two biggest chads. And then
Thank
number
Iroh.
3 right below them is Appa.
I would also
Thank
say
God Toph wasn't in this. Can you imagine how much they would have fucked up Toph?
I mean,
they probably would have made her be able to see.
I also would pick Iroh. He's just a fucking G.
Iroh's a Chad.
He's got major Mr. Miyagi energy in the in the show, but in this he's just like nothing, and he's got dreads for no reason.
Yeah,
So
he's like
that's why I
he's like
asked.
slightly better than everybody else. He's probably second to Zuko as far as acting ability, but he's like nowhere
He's
near
still
as
not
special.
trying.
He looks like a Middle Eastern Rob Zombie.
Yeah, basically.
Oh my God. Yeah, that's why I brought it up, is because they also like Iroh is of course a fan favorite character. Like everybody fucking loves Iroh. Like I fucking challenge you to find someone who doesn't love Iroh. You can't do it. And like the show like really like they give him like, you know, some nuanced features, like, you know, like he's working with the Fire Nation, but like he values like spiritual balance above that. And so when like he discovers that Commander Zhao is planning to kill this incarnation of the Moon Spirit, in the show, he says, he's like, drop it now! Whatever you do to that fish, I will unleash on you tenfold! And you're like, oh shit. He means business, man. Forgive my god-awful Iroh impression. I'm sorry you had to hear that. But like, he means business, right? And in this,
he was like a gray Jedi.
in this, he's just like, dude, come on, man, don't do it.
Hey man, like, you know what?
Oh
The
man, that's
spirit-
fucked up, man.
He's like, man,
Spirit world it hurts us all if we fuck with it, man. Like
he's like,
Iroh's
come on,
a
man.
weed bender in the movie.
You probably shouldn't. You really probably shouldn't do that.
He's
man.
a
Come on,
weed-
Be cool.
he's a weed bender in the show.
Well,
No, he's a tea bender in the
He's
show.
like,
Keep it PG.
He's like, Prince Zuko, I'm all about my tea and my kush, my brother.
and spirits or something.
Oh yeah, there's also none of the hinted background of him like having a spiritual connection. Because it's established that like only the Avatar can interact with the spirits in the spirit world. But the show does say that like Iroh, it doesn't go into it, but Iroh somehow was able to do that, and it's always a mystery. Like how did he manage to do that? And it's just not a thing.
He has
here.
no character in this. He's just like slightly less of a dickhead than the rest of the other Fire Nation people.
Exactly.
The only thing
He's
that's
not
even
having
close.
temper tantrums like Zuko.
The only thing that's even close to that is when he actually creates fire.
Yeah,
And it accomplishes nothing. He just like has a rain dance thing where he's just spewing fire out of his hands, and we're, as the audience, we're supposed to be like, whoa, but we're like, oh, this is 2010. It looks like shit.
Yeah, because they were like, well, he can create fire, and everyone in the audience is like, yeah, they all should be able to do that.
Yeah, like who cares? And it looks bad, so I can't even enjoy it.
Yeah, he's very passive about the situation, because like I said, he's like he very is like passively like, Zhao, don't do it, man. Don't kill the fish. Come on, man. Be cool. And then he kills the fish, and then he gets mad and like starts firebending. And it's like, what did you wait to do that for? And literally all it accomplishes is just the firebending or the Fire Nation dudes run away. They're just like, oh no, we better get out of here.
I can't do that. Just run away.
I sure wish I could.
Why don't they just take his fire?
Exactly. Can you just like that's the new source. That's the best source, right?
It's unlimited firepower.
Oh, and in the show they can shoot lightning and shit too. I don't remember if they do that in the first season or not, but that's like I feel
I
like
don't think
they
they
get
do.
it. They go pretty in depth about what all you can bend. And granted, I wouldn't expect a movie, like especially a movie this short, to give a shit about that, but. It's like, man, they really were just, they're not even going through the cliff notes. They're going through like the cliff notes of the cliff notes. You're going through like the paragraph synopsis in Wikipedia.
They can barely bend their main element, let alone any fucking thing else.
I wish I could bend the script.
No, but like unironically, yes. Oh, speaking of the scene where they kill the moon spirit, so it's supposed to be like this the all is lost moment, and Yue, the princess of the
they resolve it
Northern
in
Water
like
Tribe.
2 seconds.
Oh yeah, the princess of the Northern Water Tribe. Like it's established that she was going to die when she was a baby, but the moon spirit like gave her life, and so like that's the hope is that like you can give your life back and revive the moon spirit, and it's like when that happens. She gives this little speech, and it's supposed to be like a very inspiring moment for the audience. Like we're supposed to be like, "Yeah, get him!" And it's
we're
just
drooling all over
the
our
dialogue
couches.
is fucking awful. She literally says, maybe it's not her, maybe Ira says it. I don't know. Somebody says it's time we show the Fire Nation that we believe in our beliefs as much as strongly as they believe in theirs.
I would hope
Great
so.
fucking dialogue. Great
Yes,
fucking
queen.
speech. Great speech. We believe in our beliefs as strongly as they believe in their beliefs. Great fucking job.
That's like some Trump level dialogue.
It really is.
Yeah,
Oh my
like
God.
that shouldn't have been as much of a throwaway line as like, "Oh, we've been here for weeks," and you're like, "You've been here for weeks."
Yeah. Oh man. Time is nothing in this movie.
There's some time benders over there narrating it. Whoa.
And also, since we're around this part, like Aang is like by the moon spirit. He's like meditating, and Zuko kidnaps him. And in the show, Zuko like takes him out in the snow, like away from the city. But in this, Zuko literally hides Aang in the city that this battle is going down. Like, what in the world was the plan there? You know, I mean, granted, in the show, like they kind of acknowledge that he didn't have a plan taking him out into the snowstorm. They kind of acknowledge that, but in this, like, it feels like there's less of a plan because it's like you hide him in this building in the city of your enemies. How are you gonna get him out of there?
I don't know, man. Just vibe.
Everyone was just vibing in this movie. No one gave a shit.
I mean, I guess Dev Patel gave a shit.
That's true. He did
M.
give a
Night
shit.
clearly didn't. Like, why
Zuko fucks.
did M. Night Shyamalan, of all people, like the weird horror movie guy, was it his idea? I don't actually know. Was it his idea that he wanted this, or like who was looking at this guy and was like, oh, that'd be perfect to recreate a children's show?
I read, here's a little preview trivia for you. M. Night Shyamalan became interested in the project when his daughter wanted to be Katara for Halloween. So I really feel bad for her.
Oh,
That's fucking it.
all right. I mean,
Yeah.
what the fuck?
Was he even a fan of the show?
I guess not.
Oh, clearly not. He read the like plot summary on Wikipedia and was like, all right,
It's
that's
like
our
60
script.
episodes. All you have to do is watch it. It'd take like a weekend.
Yeah,
Jesus.
Like, I can't think of a less suitable director, like even for M. Night's good movies. Like, it has nothing to do with this kind of shit. Like, the show is kind of earnest, it's kind of wholesome and charming. Like, it's supposed to be a little bit corny, but in a, I don't know, like a wholesome kind of way. Like, not in a it doesn't come off as
well
cheesy
done.
or stupid. It's like tastefully done. And I never would have looked at like The Sixth Sense or Unbreakable and been like, all right, yeah, that guy.
That's our guy.
The Happening guy.
They should have got Peter Jackson.
Actually,
would've
this
been a
would
better-
have kind of been a good Peter Jackson thing.
This would have been a better trilogy than the fucking Hobbit.
Dude, if he like fucking spaced it out.
Or if
hell
we
yeah.
even had like some Sam Raimi cheese in here, like I'd be okay with that.
He would have taken better care of the fucking source material at least.
I think anyone would have.
Bruce
Yeah,
Campbell
it's-
plays Sokka.
It's really hard to imagine anyone doing a worse job than this, you know?
Do you think Neil Breen would have done better?
I was just thinking that.
I mean, this definitely had like not a lot of Neil Breenisms where all the kids are just like
incomprehensible.
staring emotionless at each other or at the camera. There's always like an uncomfortable amount of time in between lines. The editing is terrible. Like the effects look bad. This does kind of strike me as like a soup. Well, I guess the one thing that it's not a Neil Breen movie is because it moves at a fucking breakneck pace, where in Neil Breen movies basically nothing happens and it drags ass.
But yeah, as far as like actual quote unquote directors go, at least like anyone you can pick from the Hollywood roster, why the fuck would it be M. Night Shyamalan?
Couldn't tell you.
Especially after he just had like 3 bombs in the row. People are actively making fun of him constantly, and they're like, "This is perfect."
It's like 2 years after the happening, dude.
Yeah.
Like, we have like a kind of cult classic in a Nickelodeon show that's probably, I think it was like a couple years out from the last season. Oh, we've got like a really rabid fan base for this. Let's give it to the Sixth Sense guy.
Yeah, I mean, it's like the source material is too good for this to have just been a cash grab. Like they knew everybody was gonna go see it, so they made it. It didn't matter if it was bad. They got their money. They can all leave, and they don't care. But it's just too good to do that.
Hey, we have this character drama around like the same central 8 or 9 characters that significantly grow within the course of the show. We're gonna give it to the guy that is more of like a almost Twilight Zone-esque kind of director rather than and one that's notoriously terrible at directing actors. And the actors happen to be kids. So that's even better.
Never been anything before. Yeah.
Yeah, and they're all trash.
The Sixth Sense, man, he got fucking lucky, dude. Like if it wasn't for Haley Joel Osment, that movie would have been fucking trash.
Did you guys see Split?
I didn't see Split.
I've been meaning to watch that forever. I just haven't.
I liked it, but I didn't hear that Glass was good. But anywho,
I don't think I've watched anything newer of his than After Earth, which I saw in the theaters. And I don't remember if I knew it was him or not. I feel like I didn't because I got dragged along to that.
You poor thing.
You got dragged along, huh?
Yeah.
Well, it wasn't your idea. You didn't pay for the tickets. You didn't buy the popcorn.
I did pay for the ticket. I paid for my ticket, but it was like a big group of friends. I was like, "Oh, you want to go see After Earth?" And I was like, "I guess. I don't know what that is, and I haven't heard of it."
This has all been recapped in B-Roll Boys episode 3. Check it out.
Yeah, but it's an M. Night thing. And we're going to go through a lot more M. Night movies. I'm sure we're going to touch on The Happening at some point. The Happening is like the crown jewel of fucking shitty movies, but at least that one is like funny. Even if it's unintentionally so, at least that's watchable. This is just boring as fuck the entire way through.
I've seen The Happening more than any other M. Night movie. I fucking love it.
Same.
That makes perfect sense. I also want to say, all right, So in the Northern Water Tribe, when shit's dying down, this is just to give further of an idea of how fucking incomprehensible this movie is. There's a point where Zhao runs into Zuko at the Water Tribe in the North Pole, and he's like, I thought I killed you. And all 3 of us were like, why do you think that? When did that happen? And I just remembered that Zuko was in the boat when there was an explosion. And I don't think the movie explained at all that Zhao like arranged that. In the show, like it's very deliberate. Like we see that he like pays some pirates to plant explosives in the boat. But in this, I don't think it's established at all that Zhao did that. Like I think they just forgot to include a scene of him like setting up the explosives.
Like it was a deleted scene and no one thought about it.
Yeah, I was about to say, I feel like that was a cut scene. Not a cut scene, but a cut scene. Haha.
Yeah, a deleted scene. Yeah. I was so confused. And also shortly after that, it's just another example of like inconsistency in the world building that they've set up. After Aang does his big old wave to push people away, and he's like, "Bye, wave." Haha, get it? He fucking like he comes down from the wall. And like all of the Water Tribe people are bowing down to him, which is cool. Okay, whatever. Like they're on his side. But then all of the Fire Nation people that are still there bow down to him too. And what the fuck with that? Like the Fire Nation does not show that they like have respect for the Avatar simply because he is the Avatar.
No, they want to fucking kill him.
Yeah, their whole fucking objective has been that this whole time, or at least to capture him. To
capture but also kill the Avatar.
They should have been able to sense his power.
Now they're like bowing down to
Avatar.
Yeah. Do you guys have anything else you want to talk about? Because I've got a couple bullet points left, and they're kind of sporadic.
I have a question.
Yeah.
Out of the 4 elements, if you could be a bender, which one would you guys be?
Earth.
Thanks for bringing that up. Why?
Earth
Show your math.
mile.
Show your math.
As far as like which I would just want to have in general, Yeah, Earth is easily the most useful one.
Show your math.
As far as combat, that's a hard counter to everything else in the show. They can even metal bend. You can basically burrow through the earth or move yourself like at Mach speed. It's got every utilitarian and combat purpose that I could ask for. Whereas like water, you have to have water around or keep water with you. Air is only so effective, and fire has so few uses outside of combat or survival that in my daily life I would not need.
You know, Justin, that was very well thought out.
Thank you.
That's good. Harlan, what you got?
Water, but air is a close second.
I think water is probably my second, but earth is like god tier.
I mean, I would really love to take advantage of the healing abilities that are also, by the way, not touched on in this movie at all.
I don't think they do that in this one, in this season, to be fair. I don't think they do.
I'm pretty sure they do.
Do they?
Yeah, they do.
I thought that Katara couldn't heal until the second season.
No, they do learn it because in book 1, Aang meets the firebending teacher, whose name I can't remember, and he burns Katara on accident.
Oh yeah, we don't even like close to get that.
Oh yeah, not at all. Not at all.
In this, the movie doesn't even like fart in that direction.
Yeah, especially because like Aang says at some point that he has to learn the elements in a specific order, which is just not a thing in the show at all. Like he can learn it in whatever order he wants. I thought it was just kind of out of happenstance because he runs into Katara first. You can teach him, and it was like, well, the firebenders are going to be the hardest ones to find because there are enemies, but we have to find one that's going to be a teacher.
Yeah, it's just kind of a natural progression.
Yeah. But water, definitely. The healing abilities are cool. You can bend water out of the moisture in the air. You can blood bend.
Yeah, we gotta be like fucking good at it to do that.
Listen.
I actually have two answers. In my normal everyday life, I feel like water bending would be the most useful. So like when I'm in a sick WoW sesh, I could just like water bend my piss into my toilet. I don't have to get up. So that'd be pretty cool.
You would use water bending for advanced jugging?
It wouldn't even be jugging anymore. I would just be pissing, but I wouldn't have to move. It'd be
so
great.
You just sit there at your computer playing WoW with your dick out and you're just like bending your piss into your toilet? Yeah, why even bother going to your toilet? Why not just go outside?
I just pull my dick out.
Piss through your window.
I pull my dick out, it falls on the floor, cracks the tile, and then it's just like a snake line into my toilet. But as far as combat goes, I definitely agree with you, Justin. I would have picked Earth. That's probably my to-go one would be Earth. I think it's really cool.
I just feel like
I'd also like to be a better swimmer. Waterbending would make me a better swimmer. That'd be cool.
Would it?
Yeah.
It wouldn't make you a better swimmer though. You would just have
you could like use waterbending to propel yourself. Aang does that in the show.
Yeah, but that doesn't make you a better swimmer.
It makes
you a cheat.
Well, it would just mean that you're moving the water around you, so you could go like Mach 10.
You know what the fuck I mean? Come on.
Yeah, we're debating semantics here. I do think water is the second coolest, or at least the second like most useful, because air. I mean, aside from the fact that you could fly, which is kind of awesome. I mean, I don't know. That's just not as attractive to me as opposed to like earthbending. I feel like I could do so much more with. And watching the show, that was definitely what I found the coolest was earthbending.
Yeah, I will say that.
Cool.
Yeah, air is a little bit. Like there's not as much like on paper to like about it. But
there's only one of them.
I do just like the mobility of that airbending has. It's cool. I just like that kind of thing.
But it's like you still need other shit in order for airbending to like really work. Like the reason that Aang can fly around is because he's taking his glider with him, and the reason
which is pretty cool.
Bending,
I guess they need more gadgets.
It's like I don't want to have a proprietary like second thing with me. Like with water, Katara in the show, or because they don't again touch on this in the movie, Katara carries around like a bottle of water. Fire, I mean, yeah, in a perfect world, we'd be able. Yeah, we'd have a perfect Coca-Cola Dasani water bottle. Thanks, movie theaters. But and I guess for fire, you don't need like a second thing outside of the movie where you do. You don't need like an extra device. Yeah, where you have to carry fire around with you. I mean, would I be able to just like carry around like a cigarette lighter?
Yeah, I guess it would be easier in our world.
Inferno.
Well, yeah, that's the thing is like in the show, like in this movie, they do need to have an existing fire to bend it. But it seems once they have that existing fire, they can just kind of do whatever they want with it. Like they pull from it and create these huge flames and like long like ropes of flame that just are way bigger than what they pulled from, and it doesn't diminish that at all. So
I was like, that doesn't make any sense. Like, why
Yeah,
bother
it
having
makes you
that
wonder, like,
twist?
what is the point? Yeah.
But like the amount of times that even, I guess in combat, sure, but like the amount of times in everyday life that I would need to conjure fire from my hands is pretty inconsequential. And even
That's
in
true.
combat, I feel like that's hard countered by 2 of the 3 other elements. So what's the point?
Well, I don't know if it's hard countered by Earth, because I mean, like, earthbending is naturally a lot slower, so you kind of have the speed advantage.
Is it? They flick like giant walls up in a quarter second.
Yeah, all
in the
they have to
show.
do is stomp on the ground, and then a fucking
Yeah,
giant
they didn't have to do
coliseum
like
rises
16
up.
parkour and capoeira moves beforehand and do all their like Tekken combos just to throw
Yeah.
a pebble across the
Fucking-
room.
All right, I will
They
say,
were moving around like Eddie Gordo to throw a fucking rock.
all I'll say is that before you finalize your answers, you should watch Legend of Korra, because they do really cool shit with bending in Legend of Korra.
No, I'm only watching Avatar.
No,
I'll watch Korra at some point,
the
but
show's
I still
dead after that.
I still think that Earth is like my shit.
Korra's a really solid follow up. I love Korra.
All right,
Do-
well,
okay,
I'm gonna have to
but-
watch it just to wash this
But
fucking
do we have
taste out of
anything
my
else to
mouth.
say about this stupid fucking movie?
I'll speed through the rest of my notes. The Fire Nation confiscates bending scrolls but doesn't burn them. What the hell? No drama between Aang and Katara about bending. In the show, there's like this dynamic where like Aang is naturally good at it and Katara struggles, and
Because
she's
we
jealous.
have no character development, it doesn't matter, and we're
Yeah.
trying to get to the end.
Princess Yue has hair that looks like a penis, and it's really funny. Ozai suggests killing the spirits. It's his idea, and Zhao like finds the location of the spirits, but somehow he doesn't put 2 and 2 together. That's what he wants. And Sokka doesn't stand up for his Southern Water Tribe in the very beginning of the movie, which is really lame. That's all my notes. We got through it all. Good job.
Yay!
Woo!
All right, so what do you give this out of 10?
Honestly, I guess I have 2 ratings. As a shitty kids movie, 4, but as a bastardization of source material, 2.
In general, like all around, I'd give it a 2. If we're talking about adaptation, I'd give it a 0. If we're talking about just a movie, I'd give it a 2.
Yeah, I'm rating it just as a movie. And I want to say a 2, but I can't like justify it, you know, like with something like that could have been worse.
Yeah, if I'm giving Brighton Rock a 2, this at least needs a 3. So
Huh?
it's better than that shit, at least.
Is it?
Honestly, I'm not sure.
Yeah, I don't
Oh,
think
I
so.
feel like
Don't
this
make
has
me-
a
don't
lot
make me
more,
think
this is a lot
about it
more
too hard.
convoluted than that, where that's basically a non-plot. This
yeah,
has
this-
a
this
plot.
kind-
It just zips
Yeah,
through
this
it.
this has the opposite problem, whereas nothing fucking happened in Bright Neck Rock. Brighton Rock. This movie just fucking goes a million miles an hour, and you get fucking whiplash because of how much it jumps all over the place, and it's like you can't follow it. I guess I'll say a 2, but I'm tempted to say 1.
I don't know if it's quite a 1. I mean, the music was all right.
I don't know.
I
it
didn't
felt
think
very
I didn't think
generic to
so.
me.
It sounded like Batman and Robin music.
It did.
Oh, yeah.
At some
Well,
point.
Like there was like very few select times I'm like, that sounds like when I was fucking waiting in a line in Six Flags.
The ending
It's
credits.
just like
The end credits theme sounds exactly like Pirates of the Caribbean.
It does.
Like-
and you know,
But
the,
at least
the
there was
show,
a couple parts where I was like, oh, I mean, it's passable. It's not like horrible. It sounds like temp music, but it's not like super shitty temp music. At least it makes me think of better movies like Pirates. I don't
show
even think
has
the Pirates
great-
movies are that great, but that's a fucking masterpiece
I mean,
compared to this.
that ending song was definitely way better, but just like the little orchestral pieces like during the movie, that's when it really stood out to me how bad it was.
Yeah, it was only ever distracting. And you know, that's another thing, man, is the show has great music. There are a lot of like really memorable themes from the show.
It
but,
feels very restrained.
yeah.
Like in the show, like a lot of stuff feels very restrained, where it's got like silly moments, but it never goes over the top into like, even though it's an anime inspired thing, it never feels quite obnoxious or as obnoxious as other anime. It feels very
tread
like
carefully.
restrained and toned down, and I like that. That's part of the reason why I like the show so much, is because even though it's a kids show, it doesn't have to be stupid. It doesn't have to be over the top to be appealing. As I mean, hell, I was like,
mean, if it's-
I was like
if
fucking
it's-
12 or whatever when this came out, and I liked it then.
If
Like,
it's
it sold
good, it's
me.
good. Doesn't necessarily have to be a kids movie or not.
Yeah.
You know, that's
It's
what
just-
makes
it's just
Avatar
good.
so great. That's what makes it that's what makes it my favorite show ever. Is that like it really is enjoyable for anyone to watch. I remember watching the premiere of the show at my grandma's house when I was like 9, I guess 8 or 9 when it came out, and I'd still fucking love it today. It's an amazing show, and if you haven't watched it, you absolutely need to see it.
Yeah, I mean, I guess in summation, it feels like most of this episode has been us nitpicking differences between the show and the movie, which, again, reiterating, we don't hate this because it just adapts the show badly. It does, but
it's bad
I feel like because my favorite movie series ever is Lord of the Rings by a fucking mile, and those movies are very different than the books. But I feel like even though there's a bunch of like little pedantic changes from the books, some of which are just made to make the movies more, I guess, satisfying, like the ending in the books is really anticlimactic, where in the ending is the movies, it feels like it's deserved. So I don't really mind that kind of thing. I don't give a shit about little like nitpicky details as long as I guess the spirit of the original is there, or at least you have to take like a tone and stick to it. Like even though Dark Knight Batman is pretty different than normal like comic book Batman, at least they had like a vision for it and they stuck with it. I feel like this movie tries to dip its toe into like the goofy shit, especially with the go nowhere Sokka jokes, but it's so dull and lifeless for most of it that I can't even. I don't think that there was any real direction with this. It was just, we're going to have a very like bare bones paint by numbers adaptation of the plot events of the first season of the show.
Right.
But we're not going to have any of the motivation behind it or any of the qualities that made the original show good. It's basically a completely separate thing.
Yeah, the build up and the character moments and arcs and things like that. The stuff that makes it satisfying when you get the payoff,
Yeah.
Ugh. Yeah.
So what's a good thing? I already said I think the costumes were passable.
I'm going to say Dev Patel. I'm going to steal that one right now. He's clearly the only person trying in this movie.
Yeah, that's fair.
Yep, Zuko is best part. I actually think the Avatar tattoo looks really cool. Whenever it zooms in, it's like incredibly detailed and it looks dope. I like it. Harlan's wrong. It looks cool.
No, if you guys don't know, his tattoo in the show is just like a solid blue, like solid light blue arrow. In this, it's got like it's like
just a henna tattoo.
Yeah, if it was a solid light blue tattoo, it's got a bunch of needless
bullshit on it. Yeah, I don't like
if it was just a solid arrow in live action, I feel like that could really look dumb.
I thought it was cool that it kind of looks like a calligraphy pen a little bit, and it's also got like the air symbol in the middle of it. I thought that was okay.
I like the tattoo design.
I could see why you wouldn't like that. It's kind of one of those things I'm more or less neutral on. Like, I think it's fine. It was an inoffensive change for me.
I mean, yeah, don't get me wrong. Like, it's like not like one of the worst things this movie does. Like,
I mean, compared to the other million things that they butcher, it's like this is
if that was the only change they made from the show, I'd be very happy with this movie.
Yeah.
Yeah.
I think it's cool though. I like it.
It's crazy how like we just dogged. This is our longest episode, I think, right now. And we just dogged on this movie for so long, but we all three just came up with a good thing to say about it pretty fast compared to something like The Wicker Man.
That's true.
Well, because I feel like at least the seeds of something cool could be there. It's just they didn't capitalize on anything. Like whatever, everything that we chose, it was very like not in relation to the rest of the movie. Like I thought that the costumes looked okay. That's pretty inconsequential to the rest of the movie. One actor out of the entire cast being like showing effort. That's not exactly. I'm not gonna ride this movie's dick because one actor tried.
I'll say I think this movie would have worked a lot better if it didn't cover all of book one. At most, it should have gone up to when they liberate the Earth Kingdom prison camp. It should have been from beginning just to freeing Haru and his family. And I get that's not too important to the overall plot of Avatar, but it would have been much more. It would have been paced much better and easier to follow.
The structure of the show just doesn't lend very well to the.
Yeah,
to it being a movie because like I said before, every episode is kind of an anthology where it's got its own like arc that begins and ends within the episode, but then there's the overarching plot of this is what he's got to do.
Yeah, and it all does pay off eventually. Like it's all reincorporated.
And they ignore most of the episode to episode storylines, which could be fine, but if you were going to have this be a 3-movie series, that's kind of the whole payoff of the end of the show, is that they take all these like previously kind of nothing characters and they give them some kind of greater purpose outside of, oh, this was episode 3's like proprietary character that's then forgotten for most of the series. Like they all kind of matter. It's not like Pokemon where they meet a guy and that guy will be like the main meat of the episode and they never think about him again.
You know, I wonder what a third movie in this series would have looked like, because I mean, think to the finale of book 3 in the show. I mean, the final 4 episodes were all aired as like a movie. It's like an hour and a half, like back-to-back episodes that can all be watched together, and it's like building up to Aang confronting the Fire Lord finally. So like, how would a third movie from this even work to cover book 3?
Well,
like,
I think they would have done the same thing that they did with Hunger Games and Harry Potter.
Yes,
where
that's what I was gonna
every book is its own movie, except the last book is like 2 movies.
Yeah, I think that they would have done like specifically what you said, Wes, like with the Harry Potter thing, where the last Deathly Hallows movie, like the first half is kind of like all the setup and the lore, the story parts, and the second half is essentially just a giant battle. Because at the show, it's just a giant 45-minute battle.
That still would have been very disjointed, of course. Wouldn't have been good.
Of course, but again, that's why the show does not. You can't always just take a thing from one medium and perfectly translate it into another medium. Like if you have this kind of show, it needs to be a miniseries. Or like, honestly, why even touch it? Like this is one of those things, like I don't understand why you even bother making a movie or rebooting it or like a miniseries or anything. Like it's a very accessible, like it's not an obscure show. It's not something so old that you can't find physical copies of it. It's on Netflix now, and it could have been on Netflix forever ago. Korra's on Netflix too. Why does this need to be remade? Just leave it the fuck alone and let it be the thing that it is.
I love this show, man.
There's no better way the show works than as a week-to-week cartoon.
Yeah.
But
Fuck 'em for
anyway,
trying.
So what's our trivia? Because we're dragging ass here.
Oh, no, man. This is a good episode.
No, I'm loving this.
Okay, so first one. In Britain, bender is a slang term for a male homosexual. So lines in this movie such as, "Look out, he's a bender," resulted in plenty of giggling in UK movie theaters, making it difficult for audiences to take the film seriously.
Oh my God.
I
This is a
did
similar
not know.
time in 2010.
I did not know about that.
Yeah. This is the feature film debut of Noah Ringer, who plays Aang, or Ong, as it were. Who was suggested by his classmates in karate class to audition for the upcoming film, as they believed he bore resemblance to Aang. His instructor started watching the show and also noticed the resemblance, encouraging him to audition. As he had no prior acting experience, he was required to attend acting school before filming began. And yeah, if correct me if I'm wrong, but I don't think Noah Ringer has done anything since this movie. This is his one and only film.
Great.
I feel bad for him.
I feel bad for him too. He got fucking Jake Lloyded.
I mean,
his first real movie is just like this abhorrent trash, and it destroys his career. Like, I hope he's got a good job now.
At least most things around him were worse than he did, or he was, because like his moves and shit that he was doing was pretty sick.
Yeah, his choreography's all right.
At least he has that on film. Yeah, you know, it's better than being Jake Lloyd. Yeah, like I don't think the guy that played Aang is gonna like mentally crack in 10 years.
No, he's not gonna go attack his mom and get like a coke addiction or whatever.
Yeah.
Let's see. Yeah, I'm looking at everything that he's in, and yeah, he's in pretty much nothing.
Pretty much nothing.
He voiced Aang in the video game as well. He was also in He was in Cowboys and Aliens, and then he's in some TV series called The Art Craze, but he's pretty much in nothing.
Damn.
All right. Illustrious career.
But he's like 23 now,
man,
so I hope that he got like a good job.
I'll say, like, I feel bad for anyone attached to this project, pretty much, because, I mean, yeah, like I mentioned to you guys, Seychelle Gabriel, who plays Yue in this movie, ended up becoming the voice for Asami in Legend of Korra, and she's great in that as a voice actress. And I remember watching her do a live reading of one of the Korra comic books with the rest of the cast one time. It was really cool. And they did Q&A later, and they asked, like, did you do any reading on the Avatar universe before you accepted your role as Asami? And she was like, well, yeah, actually, I was in the Last Airbender movie. And the comments were just like, yikes, I'm so sorry, and shit like that. And I just felt so bad for her, man. Like, because there are talented people in this movie, you know, they all just, you know, it didn't work out.
At least people didn't seem to know.
Yeah.
That's a point in her favor.
Oh, yeah, I would never have known it was her if she didn't say it, because, yeah, she sounds nothing like her you know, Asami character in this movie, or her present self now.
This movie kind of farted in and out of existence at that time. Like, everyone, I remember it was kind of hyped, and I was mildly hyped when it was coming out, and then I heard like, oh, it's bad, and then everyone just sort of forgot about it.
Oh, I knew it was
like
going to be shit.
Menace, like that's always, those people are always just going to be crucified forever because of how shitty that was.
I knew it was going to be shit as soon as I saw Appa in the commercial. But anyway, okay, so last one. According to M. Night Shyamalan, the mispronunciation of the names of some of the characters, such as Aang, Sokka,
like most of them,
yeah,
outside of Zuko and Katara,
is due to the fact that he wished to honor the source material and use the Asian pronunciation.
Oh, suck my dick. Yeah, we're gonna have the pronunciation, but like everybody outside the villains are gonna be white. Fuck you.
Exactly. You can't claim that it's to preserve the Asian, you know, like heritage or whatever, and then whitewash all the main characters.
Just say you wanted to make it your own thing, you fucking hack.
And you know, like I did read that he like defended the whitewashing as being like, oh well, you know, the other people in the tribes are very, you know, ethnically diverse. So I'm like, well, fuck off.
It's like no one gives a shit about them. The fucking main characters should have been.
Yeah, the main characters, like you whitewash them. That's who we give a shit about. I don't give a shit about the extras in the background.
Yeah, that's
like
another thing. He didn't even
from Gran Torino. Who cares?
He didn't even whitewash well, because usually people that whitewash movies have people you fucking heard of, and this didn't even matter.
Yeah, if they had like Tom Cruise as Aang, then maybe it's a different thing. But they chose nobodies. These little fucking nothing kids.
Can I get Bruce Willis as Aang? He's bald.
I would kind of fuck with a Bruce Willis as Aang.
Yeah, there we go. Just a hardened Aang.
Eli Roth gets to be Zuko. So he's just psychotic the entire time.
God, I have a steak. Oh. All right, anything else?
No, I think I'm good. What are we watching next week?
Spin the wheel.
Spin the wheel. Spin.
We're watching Daredevil, starring Ben Affleck.
Jesus Christ, dude. Can I not show up next week?
I've never seen this one, actually.
I've never seen it either.
Bad.
Is that in my contract? You guys haven't seen it?
I've never seen it.
Dude, I don't give a shit about comic book stuff. Why would I have seen this?
I don't know.
Okay.
It came out when I was 12. Maybe you would have fucking watched it.
Okay, but you guys need to watch season 3 of Daredevil. Anyway, yeah, we'll see you guys next week for Daredevil.
I'm going to shit all over this. I can't fucking wait.
Get ready.
All right. Bye.
Bye.
See ya.
You're trash, bro.
I need a second, okay? Why can't anybody give me a goddamn second?
Hold on. You dig on multiverses?
Oh, no, not the beast! Not the beast! Ah! Open my eyes! Ah!
That's it. What, we some kind of
B-roll boys.